We're going to be talking about how I have been taking a break from social media, and I'm going to share some thoughts on how you might want to also take a break from social media. So, my story with social is that honestly, I really didn't want to be on social media before I started my business. I did not have Facebook, I did not have Instagram, like, these weren't things that were in my day-to-day life prior to becoming a business owner. And they really only became something I was aware of and felt the pressure to have because I saw all the other business owners I looked up to and admired being active on social. So I felt like I had to have social media to be a quote unquote proper business owner. But they've never been my favorite marketing strategy for a myriad of reasons, between not being that effective for me, not something I really could wrap my head around, and over the last few months, honestly years, it's really been reaching a point where these strategies just weren't working, and other strategies for me to grow my business, to audience, like grow my audience, to nurture people, has just been working a lot better. But social still takes up quite a lot of space mentally and in my calendar. And it really started to get to me that I felt like I was really forcing it on social. I was, playing the game. I was putting things out there, but I wasn't doing it very strategically. I wasn't really in earnest wanting to be there. And I think people can tell when it's not your cup of tea, when it's not something you're enjoying. And yeah, I think there was this vicious cycle of I don't feel like I was doing the best job. I wasn't enjoying that much, so therefore I wasn't getting that much engagement, therefore I wasn't getting good results, therefore I felt like it wasn't worth the time. And all of this, even if actually posting on social media didn't take tons of time and space in my brain, it was taking up a lot of like mental load. It was just becoming this task I was dreading, this thing I felt like I have to do, this thing that was dragging me down. And objectively, I couldn't see results in the business side. So it was just really not an effective marketing strategy. So I decided really in September, but in earnest started in October of 2024 this year, to take a social sabbatical, to take a break from posting on social media, and specifically on Instagram and Facebook, because I have had LinkedIn. I have abandoned it for many years. But the two that I felt really obligated to be part of was Instagram and Facebook. So I decided to take myself off of those two platforms for 90 days. And actually decided to document the whole experience inside a really affordable private podcast series, because I thought other people might be interested. It's also a nice way to like keep yourself accountable by knowing other people are watching, and because I think there's a lot that comes up with doing something like this that feels a bit counterculture, feels a bit like out of the ordinary, and I really wanted a space to explore those realizations, those things as they came up. I also use this space, that taking myself off of social media, off of the obligation of posting and creating content on these two platforms. I wanted to use the space that that created for something else productive. So rather than just saying, right, dusting my hands of social media, I wanted to take the time that that was previously kind of allocated for in my business and try some other things out and see if I could find something I liked better, something I liked more, but also worked a bit better for my business. So that has really become kind of the attitude I'm taking moving forward. I'm still technically, as we film this in November, still part of this experiment. And already I feel like I've had so many shifts in how I feel about my obligation to be on social media. And this experiment, being on YouTube, is one of those things that has been possible because I took the social media pressure off of my plate. But there's a few other things I'm going to bring into kind of moving beyond the 90-day container of this experiment. So I want to give myself permission to make social media optional. So I don't know if I might not come back to social media in some way or another down the line. I don't want to say suddenly, like, I'm drawing the line, social media is never happening for me in my business, because who knows? Like, I don't know how those platforms are going to evolve. I don't know how my business is going to evolve. but I don't want to make it an obligation and something I feel like I quote unquote have to do, because that sucks the fun out of it. But also, I think was starting to make me feel the obligation of it much more than feeling any sense of strategic like purpose behind it. Um, so I may end up in the future posting for things like launches. If I have the capacity to, I might end up, continuing to be part of other collaborations that want or require posting on social media as part of that collaboration. I may sort of keep it up for things like that, but I think the particularly coming up with original content for social media, or even repurposing things that I've created on like my blog or newsletter or here on YouTube for social media, that still feels really heavy, so I'm going to make that completely optional for myself moving forward. I also think keeping the apps off of my phone has been huge. So previously I had Facebook and Instagram on my phone, and I'm not proud, but they became quite the habit that I've had to break. And this social media sabbatical has been quite helpful in breaking that in my personal life as well. And I was finding, I'm very strict about, I work when there's desk time, when my son's in school. I don't want to be working outside of that. And I found myself blurring that line with social media because I could log into, look at pretty pictures of knitting patterns because I'm a big knitter, and find myself, accidentally getting in the rabbit hole of business content. And that didn't feel good. I didn't like that. And I, have had a bit of a slip up every once in a while and gone back on the apps to look for content around something else. And it's very, very easy to get sucked back in. So I find I have my Facebook page open on my computer. I can check it there if I need to, but I don't have to have those things accessible on my phone. And I think that distance is really, really helpful. And then I'm definitely going to keep playing with other marketing strategies. It's been so fun to just open myself up to, how else might I build a sense of community? How else might I reach people that doesn't have to be social media, doesn't have to be XYZ? And I think sometimes those creative constraints we give ourselves of, okay, we're not going to do it the typical way, can actually be the birth of really interesting, really unusual things that actually are much more effective because they're a little bit out of the ordinary. So my advice to you, I'm trying not to dictate anything and say you have to do this, but I do think that there are a few lessons I've learned that I think might be helpful for you. So first one is there is very little you quote unquote have to do in your business. It is your business. You get to decide how to market, how to sell, what you're selling, how you're running this whole thing, and you definitely can decide if you want to do it with or without social media. That is not an obligation to have an online business. And I needed to remind myself of that many times, so this is me reminding you as well. And then if you have been wishing you could take time off of social media, if you've been dreading it or finding it really not a healthy headspace to be in, I really encourage you to try this idea of taking a break for 90 days. I do feel like 90 days is a magic amount of time. I know in Atomic Habits, that book talks about, it does take about 90 days to create a new habit, but I think it also is enough time in business to see some kind of results. It's enough time to gather data to see, are we actually truly needing social media to make those marketing wheels work? Or is that just something we thought we'd had to do, and we have now the data from running a business without social media for 90 days to evaluate if that's actually true or not? So I really encourage you, if you're going to test the waters of leaving social media, to give it a try for at least 90 days before committing to whatever your version of forever or ongoing looks like. And if you're curious how my experience of leaving social media has been going, and if you're listening or watching this after the experiment's over, I'll keep this up so that you can always sort of dive in and get those insights, get that kind of real-time behind the scenes of what it's been like for me to take my business off of social media for 90 days. In the Social Sabbatical podcast, it is €9. I will keep it €9 because I think it's a really, really interesting listen. There's lots of different things, and I do share some pretty vulnerable behind the scenes of this experience. So if you are exploring leaving social media or want to reevaluate your relationship with social media, I think this is going to be a really valuable listen for you. So thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to get more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell to be notified when new episodes drop, and if this was helpful, if you have any questions, definitely pop a comment. I'm here, I'd love to hear from you and love to get kind of real-time feedback of what you're finding interesting here so I can make more videos that are interesting and helpful for you.